So most of our viewers are already likely aware that one of the main concerns of American atheists is the separation of church and state. You yourself have been involved where that hasn't happened, where there's things, so cases related to like abortion rights, LGBT equality, prayer in public spaces. But my favorite has to be the actions of protest you guys did against the Ark encounter, the Answers in Genesis Museum, which is in Kentucky. So we're going to get back to that here in a second, but my first question is going to be, there are definitely a lot of Americans and American atheists right now who are extremely anxious about a Supreme Court judge that is likely about to be confirmed that has the potential to give a majority to religious motivation on the court. Do you and does American Atheist expect to see setbacks in some of these causes? And what should those who are apprehensive like myself be doing right now as far as in relation to, I mean, not just the Supreme Court, but local things that are happening that are religiously motivated and going into law?
We are very concerned. And for clarification, we defend people's right to believe whatever they want.
Right.
But that right ends when you try to impose that belief on the people. And that is clearly what's happening with some of the Supreme Court judges, with federal judges. And when you look at some of the judges being appointed, we have to be very careful now of what cases we choose to bring forth. Because while we think we may have precedent, we think we have a strong case, these rulings could change everything. And these courts, these cases are actually working their way through the court system right now in the hopes of overturning Roe versus Wade and some other fundamental principles and laws that we've had. And so it is vital that we call our representatives, email them, and let them know that we want a Supreme Court pick that will uphold the Constitution and the law and not a religious belief or a specific agenda.
Right. Yeah. And this is one of those tricky things where like both of us are here as representatives of nonprofits, so we have to be careful on so separate from this. The following is not necessarily the view of the Atheist Community of Austin. On my end, I am seeing, and I guess I just won't comment on whether or not I think it's wrong or not, but I genuinely think that if Kavanaugh is confirmed, Roe v. Wade will be overturned. And on top of that, something that hits a little more close to home, LGBT marriage and LGBT discrimination bills are going to be a lot more successful. The worst part is right now in this lack of power checks, I don't see any way we're going to be able to do anything about it. It seems to me like his confirmation is coming and those things are imminent. Imminent meaning within the next year or two. So as those, if we have taken on the mindset of this is probably going to happen, is there anything else you think we should be doing in preparation for that? Get loud, get protesty. What would you say to those of us who are a little cynical?
Yeah, elections matter. The power of the people is in our voice, and our voice is through our vote. And who we vote in chooses the judges we have, chooses the laws of the land. So we must vote. And one of the things I say is the reason politicians cater to the religious right is because they are single issue voters. You ask anybody, what is the one issue evangelicals care about? Abortion.
Oh, yeah, abortion.
So it's very it's easy to cater to them. Right. And they had an 86% voter turnout in 2016 with 81% voting for Trump. The largest voting bloc by religious affiliation is the non-religious. Right. We are the number one voting bloc, but you can depict that two ways and argue that. One, we don't vote, which we have a low voter turnout. Right. And two, we're not single issue voters. You rattled off a half dozen issues real quick of things that we care about. Right. So if we want to challenge the religious right, we must become single issue voters. We must unite under the banner of equality. And if you're not for equal rights, we can't vote for you. Because the separation of religion and government, religion is using its power to discriminate against other people. These are all true equal rights issues. And that's something we must do. We must register people to vote, and we must turn out the vote. We have to.
I think again, I'm in that tricky area of where I'm not going to say you should have voted for so-and-so. But what was really discouraging for me to see in the atheist community before this last election was a lot of, I'm not going to vote for either because they're both as bad as each other, which to me was not an actual evaluation of that statement. And getting upset over one person who might be corrupt or might suck, but also like would at least have judges we care for, or a Department of Education secretary who isn't a garbage monster. That was really discouraging. And so that's kind of been, how do you get to your own community and say, even if you feel like there's this problem you can't get over, you have to think about the broader implication of not voting. And if the evangelical side continues to control all legal narratives in our country, get over that person used to, that's one of the funny ones too. Like, I am a member of the LGBT community. I also used to be opposed to gay marriage, so I'm not really upset at a candidate who used to be. How do we do the outreach and say, you got to start getting over some of these things and go with, when you have two choices, you have to pick one, or else you get two religious judges on the Supreme Court.
If I had the standard of everybody has to agree with me on everything, I would have no friends or nobody to talk to.
Yeah, right.
We have to look at, when you talk about lesser the evils on some of these candidates, they are not equal. Right. If they were equal, I would say, yes, if you want to talk about like, I won't mention names, but like, yeah. But these clearly aren't equal. The other thing I would do is then make a difference, make change. And one of the things the Tea Party did, the LA Times reported that in the 1990s, the Christian right hijacked over 2,000 school boards. And so what the Christian right did even before the Tea Party was they start going after school boards. And these are small elections, going after school boards, getting involved, even if you're not running, getting involved with your school boards. Because then what does that do? Once you have good candidates in your school board, then they tend to run for city councils. City councils usually tend to then run for mayors or state level legislation. And you start at a true grassroots activism. So that way, when you have a candidate, you're not voting for the lesser of the two evils. You're voting for a candidate that you supported from the beginning, that you like as individuals. Now, as organizations, we can't do this. But as individual community members, we should absolutely be engaged in elections and things. And I would say start at the school board and city council levels. Start at that level where you can make a difference in a campaign. My son's school board was decided by 25 votes. Not the difference between winner and loser. Only 25 people voted.
Yeah. No, I get you. And that's a really interesting thing. And it's something that, again, not going to comment on if it's good or bad, but the GOP and the evangelicals understand to start in those rooted places. They understand that very well. And you see that actually happening with news outlets right now, with Sinclair, an ultra right-wing group that is buying up local TV stations. So you think that the big right-wing news agency that's pushing the GOP's agenda is Fox News, but it's not. It's thousands of little news stations that Sinclair has bought up. Again, not commenting on whether or not that is 100% terrible. Go ahead.
One of the things we did is when we try to pass legislation or go after school boards or city councils, where I live, almost every candidate has run unopposed for the last 12 years on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, we went and called them out on issues, where we're allowed to, as a nonprofit, we can go after issues. Every single candidate that opposed us on these issues is now running opposed.
Good.
Good. Because these issues came to light.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we need to do, is get involved in people are running. And when you do these smaller races, they're winnable. They're very winnable at a grassroots level.
Be a real part of the solution. Facebook and Twitter shares are great, but they're not near friggin' enough. That's another thing that frustrates the shit out of me, but I digress. By the way, you can swear on this program, in case I didn't already make that clear. Good, yeah.